It's good to see a lot of familiar faces and new faces. I'm just totally overwhelmed that this many people show up on this pretty of a day, because if I could be outside, I would. This is not really that impressive. It's just that, you know, every time I do one thing and they go, oh, you do that pretty well, let's give you another job to do. So you know how that goes. But serving as the interim chair of the Department of Retailing I've been in that job for 3 months now, and I've learned so much about retailing because that is not my background. And the other emphasis is in fashion merchandising, obviously not my forte either. But they don't design, they sell it. They teach you how to sell the fashion merchandising, the business side of it. So I have learned a lot, but I'm happy to be here. Does everyone know what this is? It's a Wordle. It's a Wordle. This is something, and when I do classes like this, a lot of times it's very difficult to know, you know, who's going to be in the audience, obviously, at what level of technology, you know, do you already know, or do we have master technology people or people who are just getting started or whatever, novices. So I try to start with something very basic. This is at Wordle.net, and if you've never done a Wordle, all you do is copy and paste some text into Wordle.net, and it makes this picture. The bigger the words, the more often that word appears. So what I did was I copied my Vita, I pasted it into Wordle, so this is me. Okay? So that's how I introduce myself a lot of times at conferences or whatever. But for classroom instruction or even online instruction, I use this a lot of time for the students to introduce themselves, or an icebreaker, or get to know each other. If you're in a regular classroom, a lot of times I have them print them and paste them around the wall, and then people have to guess which person goes with which picture after they've kind of talked to each other a little bit and kind of introduced themselves. In an online class, I've posted this before on the discussion board and said, this is me, and we want to get to know each other. So each of you type one paragraph about yourself, and then make a Wordle out of it and post it so we can all get to know each other. And you'll find students a lot of times that's a very easy thing to do. It's a very kind of welcoming thing. Everybody feels like a person, because in online classes a lot of times they feel like a number. The largest online class, Sherry said I've taught online classes, large online classes before. The largest one that I've taught, it had 415 students in it, 415. The most recent one that I taught had 220. So I'm not crazy about those, and I'm not saying that everybody should do that, but you have to come up with things like this when you do have those large online classes so the students feel like human beings and not numbers. So that's just a very simple thing to do, and on the first week of class to get students going, you know, I can get into this, okay? The other way I use Wordle is for definitions. Typically when I teach whatever chapter it is, there's at least one word that they don't know what it is, okay? No matter what the content is. This semester it happens to be business communication. So I'll pick a word that they may not know. I get the definition off Wikipedia or out of the book or wherever. I try to make sure that the word is not in the definition, because sometimes that happens, even though I hate that. It's like, what is fast? Fast is when you move fast. No, that's not the definition. So you try to take out words that might give them too much of a clue. So I went to Wikipedia, and this is a very easy word, I hope. Do you know what this is the definition. So what's the word? Dog. Very good. Whew, we're on the right track. So see, we always start with something simple. Okay? So start with something simple. Then what I do is I can post that. You can post it on a wiki, you can post it wherever you want. And then there are other words in here that the students, this is not a word I use in my class, but when we do these definitions, there may be other words in the definition that they don't know the meaning of. So it helps you dissect a word and look at other words in the definition in a little bit different way, instead of just doing a discussion board and going, who knows what, I don't know, carnivore means, or who knows what this means. So it also gives those students who are a little bit more of a visual learner something different to look at instead of reading a definition. Two very simple ways to use Wordle. Has anybody else used Wordle in a different way? because this is why we do these sessions, to learn from each other as well. Yes? Introduce the chapter? Okay, so where do you get the text that you paste into Wordle? Do you make it up, or do you copy from a book? Or
I usually will blend from the test quiz I have, and then if I have like a PDF of like a reading that goes along with it, usually I can copy and paste a couple of paragraphs from that PDF.
Good. So it's a great way to copy and paste information from an upcoming chapter and kind of go, this is what the chapter is going to be about. Here's an overview of the chapter. I've had other people tell me they do it when students have to read something. You know how well our students love to read. But they have to read something and summarize it. They can type their summary and then put it in Wordle and see if it looks like what they think it should say. You know what I'm saying? I worked with Gail Wagner, an ethnobotanist on campus, and she had a group of people who got a grant, and they were getting together and they were trying to develop curriculum online for other ethnobotanists across the world to use. It was going to be free. And they were trying to develop the mission of their group for their grant. And so she said, will you come facilitate my grant? And I said, well, I'll facilitate it, but I don't know anything about plants or anything like that, so I don't even know what words you guys use. And it was funny that they'd make jokes, you know, and I go, I have no idea what you're talking about. I go, that was funny. I don't know what that plant is, but I said, you guys talk. There was a group of maybe 20. Break into groups. You guys talk. You write down what you think your mission is. And then we got back together, the two groups, and we talked about what their mission was. And I said, okay, now that each group has a leader, and I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to type words on when you guys tell me what your mission is. And so then we did that. I took all the words, I dumped it into Wordle, I threw it up, and I said, I didn't throw up. I put it up on the presentation, and I said, is this your mission? And they said, well, the whole thing is about curriculum, developing curriculum for other people. And curriculum was about this big, the little word that said curriculum. And I said, well, then what you're writing is not portrayed in what you're trying to do. So then we went back and revisited the mission. So that's just, you know, it's just kind of nice to put words and pictures together and help people understand what's going on. So just a few ways to use that. But when you think about integrating technology into your online classroom or any place else that you're doing it, you really have to think about who is my audience. You have one handout. I don't have one, but you do. You need one of each of these, don't you? Did you get all of these? The one that says, I don't know what it says here. I think there's one more. This one. The one that says online language communicating with students at the top. Yeah, the one-page one. I'll have to get you one of those. All right. Got one? All right. Thank you. I just printed that out just for brief information. I'm not going to go over it a lot, but all of you know there's different generations, and different generations act in different ways. We hear a lot about the millennials, but a lot of your students are also going to be baby boomers. They're going to be Generation Xers. They use technology in different ways. Okay? So just to highlight, and again, these are general guidelines. These are general guidelines. It's not, if you're a baby boomer, you act exactly like this. If you're a millennial, you act exactly like this. But they're general guidelines. And for example, the second paragraph that says, baby boomers' strengths include their social skills and drive to be successful. So if you start to implement some type of online communication in your course, they want to be social. So they're probably going to be a part of that. The Generation Xers, really, they're kind of independent. They like to work on their own. So if you expect them to communicate online all the time, then you have to establish for them what's the purpose of this and why are we doing this. Some people socialize and just communicate because they like to communicate. Some people you have to make communicate. Some people you have to explain to them why do they have to communicate. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but just so you know and have some information. Stealth Consulting is a company that I have on the side, and Max Knowledge is a company that we develop some courses for. So if you just were wondering what the heck that was. But you have to think about your audience. You know, teaching undergraduate students and incorporating technology is different than graduate students, PhD level, that kind of thing. And you just have to think about who you're teaching. You have to think about your learning outcomes, obviously. Okay? Don't just throw technology into your class because you think it's the cool thing to do. Does it really have a purpose? So think about, why are you incorporating the technology? Does the technology help you or your students? I mean, a lot of times I've put technology into my course because it made my life easier. It didn't necessarily make their life easier, nor did it necessarily help them connect or achieve the learning outcomes better. So you really have to think about, am I being selfish because I want it to automatically grade so I don't have to do that? Or is it moving, them forward toward the learning outcomes? And will everyone be able to use the technology? I mean, we do voice over PowerPoint all the time and that kind of thing. And then when you have a hearing impaired student in your class, you're like, oops, they can't hear my voice over PowerPoint. So then what do? Do I script it? Do I find some type of so they can read it while they watch the PowerPoint? Do I do some type of software package that does closed caption for me? What do I do? So don't assume that all the technology that you throw out there in your online course or wherever works for everybody. The other thing you have to think about is Macintoshes versus, we used to call them IBM computers, PCs. And think about, does it work on, all platforms? So think about who's going to use the technology and how will they use it. The second handout you have that says something about Stealth Consulting at the top, and it is stapled. Sorry, it's been a long day. I forgot what that word was. It's stapled, and it has a list of like blogs, digital portfolios, etc. This is just a blurb out of one of the courses that we've developed to teach people how to teach online. There you go. So again, I'm not going to go in detail about that, but that's something that you can reference to later. But the four main things to think about when you're choosing technology to put it in your classroom, whether it be online or face-to-face or blended, is, are you choosing the appropriate technology? Okay? I always say choose the lowest common denominator. You don't have to use the biggest and best and the most wonderful thing that's out there. Just use the low-hanging fruit, the ones that everybody can use and works for you. It has to work for you. Just because something has 5,000 different features doesn't mean that you have to use all those different features. Just pick and choose the appropriate ones that work for you. The other thing you have to think about is, am I using the right tool for the right function? Is there a match? Now, I like matches, like everyone knows Blickies, blogs, and wikis. Blogs, Blickies. It's a new tool I developed. I just wrote that app at lunch. Blogs are good for reflection and journaling, okay? But blogs can be used for other things. Wikis are good for, developing things as groups. You could, it's like designing your own web page, people editing each other's work, but they can also be used for other things. So you kind of have to be creative, okay? So if you see a tool and it says, this technology tool is for this purpose, I bet you can figure out a different way to use it, okay? For example, do you know Adobe Connect Professional? Okay, Adobe Connect Professional is a software package where you can have live conferences with your students and teach through that, like live meetings. You can be a little talking head. They can be a little talking head. You can lecture with your PowerPoint right there. You can record it. They can watch it later, things like that. That is typically designed to dump information to students, okay? Then if you are if you're synchronous in your class and you're online at the same time, then they can share with you as well. So it can be a two-way conversation, okay? But I think outside the box. I don't even have a box. So what I do and have used, Jing is another product, and Adobe Connect Professional is I grade my online students' papers by bringing them up and I have the Adobe Connect window open, or Jing. Jing just records your voice and whatever on your computer screen. And I use track changes, comments, highlighting tools, and I grade their paper while I'm talking to them. Okay, I mean, they're not there, but I'm talking to myself, grading their paper. So it records my voice, it records their paper, and it records my changes to their paper. Then I send them a URL, because it saves to a server in the sky, in a special place at USC. We don't care where it is, it just works. And so all you have to do is send them a URL, and they watch you and hear you grade their paper. Okay? That is not what Adobe Connect Professional was designed for. So think about the tool, but think about what you need to get done and how you can make that tool work for you instead of you work for the tool, if that makes sense. Okay? Think about if you're using the tool to facilitate the teaching process. Okay? A lot of times we use tools to facilitate things to be automatic just so we don't have to do it. Okay? Like quizzes that grade automatically, and quizzes or tests or whatever. But think about how to use the tool to facilitate the teaching process. If you facilitate the teaching process well, then the learning process should improve. Okay? So don't think about these tools just about what's going to make it easier for me, but what's going to actually enhance the class. Okay? And then assess them. At the end of every semester, actually 2 times within my semester, I ask students, is this working for you? Michelle Maher was the one who taught me stop, start, continue. You ask the students, I just did it in my class, so we're what? 3 months in, 2.5 months in. What do you want me to stop doing? What do you want me to start doing? What do you want me to continue to do? And you let them, I put it on Blackboard. It's an anonymous survey. I don't know who said what, and they give me feedback. I do that a couple times a semester. So if they say stop, you know, every time you post something on Blackboard, you also email us. We are tired of you doing that. Would you please stop, you know, inundating us with your emails? Then I stop and I say, okay, I'm just going to post it on announcements. Then it's your responsibility. You got to check announcements every day. Or they might say, you know, this software package just doesn't work for us. This is more trouble than it's worth, and we're spending more time trying to get through the problems we're having with whatever the technology tool is that we can't get our project done or whatever. So it's good feedback. They'll also tell you things like stop giving tests. And you go, well, I can't do that, you know, because it's tied to the learning objectives, that kind of thing. But you want to assess formatively throughout the semester, and at the end of the semester when you do your student course evaluations, I always ask them if I use some new technology or I tried something different, that was this helpful in your learning? It can be one simple thing. Okay? Like this semester I'm using a wiki, which I haven't done before like this, that students edit each other's writing. It's a business communication class, so they have to write a letter, they dump it in the wiki, and then other students have to edit their letter. I thought it would be the most successful thing I'd ever done in my life, but it is not. It's an undergraduate class. I've done it with a graduate class before and it was successful, but the undergraduate students, they tell me, I don't feel comfortable editing other people's work because I don't want to hurt their feelings. I go, you can get over that. So now I got to figure out how to make it, you know, anonymous. I didn't make it anonymous. Probably if I would have made it anonymous, you know, it might have been better. But anyway, you try it, you assess it. If it works, it works. You keep going. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Kick it to the curb. There's another technology waiting around the corner. Okay? So, but you have to be willing to do that. I could have 5,000 pages of these. I didn't know what technologies you might be trying. How many of you are teaching online right now? Okay. How many of you want to teach online? How many of you, they're making you teach online? Yeah. Okay. It happens. So I just pulled some things off the top of my head and through websites and things, and would like to talk just a little bit about how you would use these things. If you have other ideas, like the ways you have used them in your classroom or online, feel free to jump right in. I just put them in alphabetical order for no apparent reason, because I think like that. But how many of you have used blogs? Okay? Do you typically use blogs so everyone can see them or privately? Everyone in the class.
Just by groups.
By groups, okay? So everyone in the group can see whatever they're blogging about. Some people let everybody in the class see what they're blogging about. The one I'm doing this semester is private, so I'm the only one that can see what they're doing because it's service learning and I want them to reflect on what they're learning and how they're doing. So again, you have to think about your learning objectives. One of the learning objectives in the course is that students will reflect on their service learning project. So that's the way I'm matching that learning objective. A lot of times, and it's kind of a generational thing too sometimes, is they don't believe you. I said, this is a private blog. I'm the only one that can see it. And they're like, yeah, we don't believe you. And so I pull it up in class the first day, and I said, everybody blog something nice, because I'm going to put it on the big screen, something about how go Gamecocks or something. And then I pull it up, they blog, and I said, see, I can see everybody's blog, okay? Now look on your computer, whose blog can you see? And they go, just ours. I go, I'm not lying to you, okay? So this is private, but sometimes you kind of have to train them. Any type of journaling, reflection, those kinds of things. Group work can be done on blogs. Okay. Bookmarking, does anybody use Delicious? That's usually the most popular one. Nope. So you know how you have your favorites? You go to the internet and you have your favorite list, and then you go home and your favorite list isn't there? That's what Delicious lets you do. It's a site where you can put all your favorite bookmarks on the internet. Some faculty have used it to help students understand how to start to write an annotated bibliography, where they have a link, and then they have to have a paragraph that describes what that link is all about. And then you can develop a course one, you can develop one for yourself, each student can develop one, or you can develop a huge resource list for your course. Okay? And the students build that for you. Then you use it semester after semester. Anything you can do with the technology that you can use over and over and over again is a good thing. Okay? Reusable learning objects is what we call them. So anytime you could do that. Blinkist is just a competitor. I haven't used Blinkist. Every technology you see is going to have a competitor. I mean, even Twitter has a competitor. Facebook has a competitor. So you're going to see that. Brainstorming, if you want them to do some type of group brainstorming, these are not quite like whiteboards, but there are some that do that as well. But it allows them to kind of throw out ideas all together and put them together, almost like concept mapping. Okay, maybe would have been a better word I should have used. Communication technologies, anytime you're trying to communicate with your students, don't forget that texting is a communication method. Some students have told me, many students have told me, I wish you'd quit emailing me because we don't check our email. And I said, when Blackboard comes up with, I can go to Blackboard and type one text and it gets sent to all of you in my class, I'll use it. So as far as I know, they're not there yet. But if I can type one email and send it to 220 kids in my online class, I don't want to text 220 times. So, but that's a preferred method, and I know a lot of faculty do use texting. Okay, so just something to think about. Obviously, your learning management system here is Blackboard. You might have some Moodle experience or other experience. It's a great place to just have a central location. I do everything through Blackboard. Even if I do Adobe Connect and I record my voice over PowerPoint and it gives me a URL, I put it in Blackboard so they know where to go for all the information, all their quizzes, all their projects, the syllabus, all the links to anything, communication, email, announcements, everything. I love Blackboard. Some people I know don't, but you work with what you got. And that's why I feel like a lot of times hamster on the wheel trying to get through all the technologies and learning one more thing. I have a friend that retired a couple years ago, and she said the best thing is that I never have to learn another software package the rest of my life. I go, oh, that would be so nice. That would be awesome. Media hosting and sharing. How many of you have your students or you use YouTube for a course? Okay. How do you use YouTube?
I teach African American Lit, and so I can find old performances by Howlin' Wolf and Miles Davis and stuff, and I just, bam, here's the URL.
Awesome. So they can go watch things that they would have never been able to do before.
Press in 1962,
Cool. A lot of people don't know that if you do go to, this probably has a pointer, if you do go to youtube.com/education, those are more just education videos. It's not crazy man in his living room doing whatever he thinks is right. Okay? So they call it YouTube EDU. So that's a good source to start, because if you start searching YouTube, you know you get some crazy things. Gail Wagner also used YouTube in her class and had students create, that was their final presentation. They did YouTube presentations. And she created a YouTube site that was just for her class. So you can do that, you know, so that people can just people in your class can see those presentations. Because some of them went to Indian reservations and things like that, and they would not release, they said this can't go public. You know, this is a tribal dance or whatever. So you have to think about your copyright restrictions a lot. And then a couple of them, some sororities wanted to pick them up and do some type of fundraiser for whatever group they investigated, and then those groups gave the right to go public, so then they could put it on YouTube. So you have to think about those things. Flickr and SmugMug are ones that are good for pictures, holding pictures. People who teach in the arts, things like that, you know, they don't have a server sitting someplace where they can store all these big pictures, can store them online, people can view them, and things like that. Okay? Anybody else with any of the media hosting or sharing, like YouTube or Flickr?
Vimeo?
What's that?
Vimeo?
I have not used Vimeo. So how have you?
It's very much like YouTube, except for it can handle a longer video than 10 minutes.
Okay, good. There's so many out there, you know, you just can't keep up. But you have to find the tool that's appropriate that meets your needs. Okay? Microblogging is like Twitter. Tumblr is a competitor. I haven't used Tumblr. I used Twitter in one class. That was in the class that I taught 220, and I had this great idea. I have them all the time, and they never work out. But I had done some research with a professor in our hotel restaurant tourism management program, and she was doing research on how have Facebook and Twitter impacted the restaurant industry, couponing and getting people to say new menu ideas, that kind of thing. And there was a guy in New York City who had a hot dog cart, and he would tweet his friends and say, I'm at the corner of Broadway and 56. I'm going to be here an hour. Hurry up, come get your hot dog. And they would just flock to him. And then he would move. He'd go, I'm at the corner of, I don't know any more roads in New York City. I'm at the corner of New York Avenue in Ohio, and I'm going to be here for an hour. And people would just flock to him. So I thought, you know, I'm teaching 220 students. I do online office hours. Nobody ever shows up. I just sit there and look at myself, you know, with Adobe Connect Professional open. And so I thought, I'm going to do something different, because I looked up the students, and the majority of them were on campus, even though they were taking a 200 or an online class. So I would tweet and say, I'm going to be at Moe's for lunch. I'll be there for an hour. You can come to me and ask all your questions. And I envisioned 220 kids standing outside of Moe's, and Moe's ticked off at me. And the whole semester, not one kid showed up. And I went to Moe's, and I went to Immaculate Consumption, and I gained 10 pounds. And so, but that, I assessed that technology, and it did not work for me in that way. But I know other people who are very successful with Twitter. A lot of people who teach in the language arts will have their students follow an author, so they get to know that author differently, or they might be talking about their newest book or whatever. Foreign language, Laura Lomaika Anderson, Laura Ducate in foreign language use Twitter very proficiently. Laura Anderson even has a book coming out. So again, you've got to find that tool that works for you. Okay. Quiz and test software. There's lots of different ones. If you don't want to use the ones in Blackboard, the main thing with any type of quiz online software is you want to make sure things come up randomly. You want to make sure you give them a short amount of time. Those kinds of things. Facebook and Ning. In this same class where I taught 220 students, I used Blackboard discussion board, Facebook, and Twitter. Because every time I went to a conference, they said, you got to go where the kids are. kids are in Facebook. You got to do your discussions on Facebook. You got to do this. Okay, so I did Twitter, Facebook, and discussion board all in the same class, and the only thing it did was it made me do the same thing 3 times. Okay? Out of 220, I had about 70 kids that went to the Facebook group, and they did discussions, and they enjoyed it. I only had about 20 that followed me on Twitter. That's why nobody showed up. And then as soon as the class was over, I kicked them all out because I didn't want anybody following me. And I set up private sites for those, so it was just class members. And at the end, when I did my student evaluation, I said, tell me what you prefer. You know, did you like Twitter? Did you like Facebook discussions? Or did you want Blackboard? And overwhelmingly, they told me when we go to Blackboard, we think about class. Blackboard discussion was best. That's where most of them participated. And Facebook was nice for those who wanted to participate, but there was an overwhelming amount of students who said, when I go to Facebook, I don't want to talk about class. I go to Facebook for other reasons. So now I use Blackboard. Okay? But think about that, you know, while you're doing things and incorporating technology in your classroom, whether online or face-to-face, do your IRB up front so you can do research and see if it makes a difference. And so you can do research about what you're doing in your class. So anytime I try something new in class, I get a publication off of it. Okay? So think about that because you want to know if it improves their learning. This semester, it's the wiki and the blog and service learning. So do your IRB, Institutional Review Board, so you can do research with your classes. Do that before your class starts. Get approval. I always tell the students I'm doing it. I say, here's a little here's a 1-page paper describing what I'm doing. I'm not going to take blood from you. I'm not going to give your names out or anything like that. And then get your publications because we all need them. Student response systems. How many of you have used clickers in the classroom? A few of you. You all know what clickers are? Okay. Yep. Students are walking around with 3 or 4 different ones in their bags, or they have 15 of them in their bags so they can count their friend in present when they go to class. But those are good for face-to-face classes. But if you're online, Poll Everywhere is just one example. Duffy. What's Duffy's first name? Patrick Duffy, who teaches in theater. He teaches like intro to theater to 300-400 kids in an auditorium. He started using Poll Everywhere because nobody would ask a question. You know? You're sitting there looking at 300 or 400 kids and you go, do you have any questions? And they're all like, what time do we get out of here? That's my question. Where's Waldo? You know, that's about it. And so he started using the Poll Everywhere, and with that, you can get an account, and the students can use their cell phone so they can text a question. They could use a laptop. They could use an iPad. They could use any technology they have. As long as they can type something in, they have wireless. The room had wireless. And he did it mainly for test reviews. So there was an interaction there. You know, text me a question that you don't know. It comes up on his computer, and he can say accept or deny. He didn't know that for a while, and he got some crazy questions flashing up. But you can say accept or deny, and then it would go up. But there's also different ones you can use for online polling as well. Adobe Connect Professional has a polling feature in it. If you're teaching and you have your PowerPoint up, and you know you're live with your students synchronously, and you go through a couple PowerPoints, and you want to see if they know what you're talking about, you throw a poll up and you ask them a few questions on what you just lectured. And then it automatically shows like a bar chart, how many people said A, how many people said B, that kind of thing. If everybody got the answer wrong, you probably need to back up and talk about that content again. You know, if everybody got it right, boom, keep going. Okay? So those are just some different ones. Student response systems. Technology is grand when it works. I'm all stove up now. There we go. A little slow. I don't know how many of you use OneNote. Does anybody? I don't either. Chris Brown loves it. And it's like so is Live Binders. It's like an online binder, so you can organize all of your content. My fear is as soon as I go into OneNote and I start to organize this part of my life, then I'm going to have to organize it all, and I just don't have time. Mm-hmm.
There's a really good package called Evernote.
Evernote?
Because you can use it on your phone.
There you go. See, and Evernote, when we did that iPad grant, Evernote was one of them that would come up. So you can, and that's the other thing you have to think about. It's actually, thank you for saying that. It's why I put that picture in that one, is whatever technology you're using, you're going to have to think about how it shows up on their phone, how it shows up on their iPad, how it shows up. I have had in that 220 student class, I had one girl who took a Blackboard quiz on her phone. And then she emailed me immediately and said, I just hit submit, but I don't know if it did. Will you check? I just took this on my phone. And I went, what? I actually texted her back, what? No, I didn't. And I said it worked, and it did. And I've never had anybody, well, they haven't told me. They may have done it. But yeah, you do. That's a good point. You do have to think about how are they viewing it, okay? So, or does it even work with that? So, Live Binders is online. OneNote is actually a Microsoft product. But Live Binders lets students or you go out, organize content. People have access to it, that kind of thing. Students need help with organization. At least my students do. Screen capture. I didn't even put Camtasia up there. Camtasia, Jing, Screen Toaster. What it does is it captures what's on your computer screen in your voice. So the best thing I think I use Jing for is any course content I teach, I know there's going to be something that the students don't understand how to do. If they knew how to do everything, they shouldn't be in the class. Okay? But there's certain parts of whatever it is we teach that we know students are going to have a problem with that. Okay? So what you do is you pull it up on the screen, whatever it is, a web page, a software package that they have to use, an article in PDF format, whatever it is, pull it up on your screen, go to Jing, and Jing is free as long as you will record 5 minutes or less. And believe me, when you start listening to yourself, 5 minutes is plenty of time. And it's plenty for your students as well. But you can record what's on your screen in your voice, so you can show them how to do it. And then it saves to a URL, or you can save it to your computer. Okay? So then when students ask you that question, mine was always the payment function in Excel. I don't understand how to do the payment function. Well, watch that video. They go, I still don't know how to do it. Watch that video. I still don't know how to do it. Maybe you should get a friend to watch the video with you. Or drop the class because you got to do it. You know, something. But then again, you start to develop those reusable learning objects. And you start a library. And the more you teach the class, the more resources you have for your students. In one class, I don't remember what it was, I wanted one part of the course requirements was that the students develop a Jing to show somebody else how to do something. So then you've got all of those in your resource. Okay? So those are good. Video resources, I don't know how many of you have gone to the TED website. There's tons of videos out there. I didn't know what TED stood for until I looked it up. I thought it was somebody's name. But it's Technology, Entertainment, and Design. There's tons of videos out there that are free that you can have students watch. There's a lot of different online whiteboarding packages. Scriblink and Board 800 are just a couple of them, but it's an online whiteboard. Everybody goes to the site, a whiteboard appears, and you can write on the whiteboard. Okay? And wikis. Of course, there's some through Blackboard. That's what I'm using. A lot of people use Wikispaces. But when I went to the EDUCAUSE conference, and have any of you been to EDUCAUSE? I tell you, it's a great conference. There's EDUCAUSE. I've only been to the regional ones. I haven't been to the big one yet. But EDUCAUSE Southeast was in Charlotte in June. I think they'll be in Tampa this June. In April, EDUCAUSE Midwest was in Chicago, and I went to those two. But they're in each region. There's EDUCAUSE Southeast, Northeast, Midwest, whatever. And they're really geared toward new technologies and teaching with technologies. But there's also some design people there, and there's also some Center for Teaching Excellence people there. So it's a good mix of faculty and support people and other people that you would like to work with. And the one I went to in April in Chicago, we were talking about wikis, and I went to this one because I wanted to see how to use it better because I was going to use it in my class. That's when we want to know. I'm going to use it in my class next semester, so what do I do now? So that's what I did. And the guy talked for 50 minutes on why don't you just use Wikipedia? And I go, well, why would I use Wikipedia in my classroom? You know, it's just a resource that people go to, and anybody can fix anything on. He goes, oh, your class can make their own Wikipedia page. I go, well, I never thought about that. And he said, when my students write for Wikipedia, they write better because they know everybody in the world can see what they write. And then I go in and authenticate that everything's correct at the end before I make it live. He said, but in the meantime, I go in and say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. You fix it, and you fix it. Okay? So they write and they edit and they write whatever the content is of your course, and it goes live to the entire world. I haven't done that. Maybe that's the next thing I should do. I'll tell you whether or not it bombed. But has anybody done anything like that in your class? I thought it was kind of a cool idea. All right. This is one site on Google. Of course, Google owns the world practically. Between Google and Blackboard, that's the world. But this is one website, and if you don't know about some type of technology you want to use, this is the place to go. This one is social networks, so there's a whole bunch of them here. So if you want to know about, I can't read that, Facebook, it tells you about that. Specific to Twitter, so here's a whole bunch of things about Twitter. Blog communities, blog conversations, and blog platforms. So obviously blogs are popular. But it's like, it reminds me of the NBC Peacock, you know, but you click on the little part you want, and it comes up with all these links about all these different ones that you might want to learn about. So it's a really cool site to figure out what tool might be appropriate, what technology tool for whatever it is I'm doing. One that was interesting to me is this one is events. So it's kind of like event management kind of, you know, and they do a lot of that in our college. There's music, there's wikis, documents. I mean, we haven't even talked about Google Docs and all of those kinds of things you can use. Video, a lot about video, social networks, etc., etc. So it's just a good site to go to when you go, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. I hate it that they're making me do this, but I need some information. And I mean, just using the internet in general, you know, gives you a lot of information. The other handout I gave you looks similar to this. And again, if you don't know about EDUCAUSE, you really need to go to their website, educause.edu. There's lots of free information there, and they have these things that are called 7 things. And there's 7, you just go to EDUCAUSE and you go to their search and you type in 7 things. And probably thousands of links come up. There's 7 things you want to know about Second Life, 7 things you want to know about Twitter, 7 things you want to know about blogging, 7 things you want to know about what to know about. Okay? So they're great resources. They're 2 pages. All of them are 2 pages. They look just like this, and it talks about what is it, who's doing it, how does it work, why is it significant, what are the downsides, where's it going, and how does it have implications for teaching and learning. So it's succinct information to give you information on whatever it is you're trying. Okay? There's too many things to try. We need more time. We don't have an app for that. I've been working through the Distributed Learning Grant through the Provost's office to create business communication course into a blended course where we do some online and some face-to-face. And one thing I put in my grant that I was going to do those voice-over PowerPoints because I've been doing those for 4,000 years. And I was going to use Adobe Presenter, which I have used for pretty much ever since I've been here in 2003. And you can record your voice-over PowerPoint. They look pretty. Now with the new version, you can put in quizzes. So the students get a URL. They click on it. Your PowerPoint comes up. They hear your voice. The PowerPoint moves automatically, and then it stops, and there's a quiz question. Okay? So you can either make it. Well, Aisha can make it. I haven't made it yet. You can either make it. If they get it wrong, it takes them back in the PowerPoint, and they have to watch it again. And it'll keep doing that till they get it right. Or you can make it. They can answer as many times as they want till they get it right, and then it will move on. Okay? The one thing I didn't like about that was that you couldn't tell who took it, who took the quiz. Okay? And you don't really see their answers. Hey, you do see their answers, okay? But Aisha figured out at the end of the quiz, which, nothing eliminates all cheating, not even in your face-to-face classroom. But at the end, she's just going to put in a slide that says, what's your name? And they type in their name, and then I can go into my Adobe Connect account and print a report that shows me who all took the quiz. So at least I can give them, I'm going to let them answer that question as many times as they want until they get it right and then move on. But at least then I can give participation points or completion points because I know they watched the video. Because I have spent summers and months creating voiceover PowerPoint, and then at the end the students tell me they never watched any of them. Like, well, that's great. Okay? But I'm getting tired of my voice, and I know they are too. So when I was at Educause Southeast in Charlotte, I was talking to an instructional designer, and I said, I'm really getting tired of recording my voice over PowerPoint or over Adobe Presenter or whatever. I'm just tired of my voice. And he said, well, at our university, there's always one of those, well, at our university, we buy professional voices, and then the faculty give us their PowerPoint, and we dub a professional voiceover. I go, well, wouldn't that be nice? You can get the Verizon guy's voice. You can get whoever you want. So I said, I should look into that. I've got this great big grant. It's a whole, $8,000 or something, to use that and record. I have 12 PowerPoints that maybe had 15 slides each. It was $7,000. And I go, that ain't going to work. Well, back up. That ain't not going to work. But she found, this is text-to-speech. And I've known forever there's text-to-speech software out there. I've used Dragon Naturally Speaking before, which is speech-to-text. This is text-to-speech. So I write a script that what I want on my PowerPoint, which is good, because then if I have a hearing impaired student, they can read my script, okay? So I'll have my PowerPoints, quizzes embedded, so the students have to interact in that way. I can see who took them. And I type a script. We just decided an hour ago, we are buying a multilingual package that has American English, Spanish, German, French, for $129, and you can use it over and over and over and over and over again. Okay? So that's the next thing I'm trying. Okay? So and they have every language. They have all sorts of stuff. But basically it's a text reader, and she's going to embed it in Adobe Presenter. And it goes with every slide. Like I had slide 1, this is what I want to say. She copies, when she embeds it, that goes on slide 1. Okay? So later if I go, ooh, I hate slide 42. I do not like that. You know what I said? I should have said something different. I can change that one slide. Because sometimes, when you start recording, you're going, oh no, this is going to be awful. And I got to start all over, But if you do voiceover or PowerPoints with Adobe Presenter or any of those things, don't get too bogged down into how you have to be perfect. Okay? If you step into a classroom and you lecture over something and you screw up, what do? Oh, I'm going to have to start this class over. Okay. No, you go, I screwed up. Let me start over. Or something doesn't work with the technology you're using. Well, let's figure it out. Do the same thing when you record your voice if you're doing that. But with and it took me seriously, I was in a car, I wasn't driving, but it took me about maybe 30 minutes to type the first script. And I know they're going to get faster and faster and faster as I go. And we figured out kind of that about 1,500 words in your script is 10 minutes. And you can speed the voice up or slow the person down or whatever. It sounds a little computerish, but not bad computerish. You know what I mean? They've really done pretty good. And you get to pick male, female. They have names. We picked Joey. We like Joey. We picked Joey. But Ivy was new. She was decent. She wasn't as good as Joey. Okay? So you can pick male, female, whatever. So again, it's whenever you're thinking about technology in the classroom or online, it's ongoing. I taught my first online class, I think, in 1999. And you can imagine how many technologies I've been through since then, okay, whether I wanted to or not. So that's cool. Student presentations are another thing, especially when you're doing online classes, that people go, well, I can't do student presentations because it's online. So there's lots of different ways people on campus have done that. Public health did a so students did some great presentations with Extra Normal. And they were like, don't drink and drive kind of things, and, wash your hands a lot because there's diseases. This is why I don't teach in public health. That's all I can think of. YouTube, again, Gail Wagner did a lot with YouTube. Sometimes you go to a conference and you go, I want to show a YouTube video, and then they don't have internet. You can use savevid.com and save those videos to your computer and then just show them off of your laptop. That's a good thing. PhotoStage, Movie Maker are kind of the same. They make movies. They're both free. Of course, PowerPoint. Voki is you create your little character. Last I checked it was free. Who knows? The free ones get you tied in, and then they cost you money in a minute. But Voki is you create your little character. It's just kind of a head, maybe this much of you, top half of your body. You type the words, and your character says it. So it's kind of cool. It's fun to play with. Second Life, if any of you have done anything in the virtual world, I have an avatar in Second Life who's tall and pretty. So I like her. But it's that kind of thing. You just have to try different technologies, see what works with you or for you in your class, and then assess it and see if it really worked. Don't keep using something over and over and over again just because you have, the resources when it doesn't work. Okay? The worst thing you can do in your online class is not communicate. So if you don't communicate well with your students, you will get the worst teaching evaluations, been there, done that, in your entire life. Okay? Communicate, use technology they can use, ask them if it works, ask for their opinion, ask for different ways to use it, and try different things. Okay? You'll never get bored. If you get bored, it's your own fault. Well, what questions do you have, Tom?
Can you talk about Breeze?
Breeze is Adobe Connect Presenter now. Okay? So that is the one. It did used to be called Breeze, and you still go to www.breeze.sc or breeze.sc.edu. No www. And that's Adobe Connect Presenter, and that's your voiceover PowerPoint that you can embed those quizzes in and do all those things. Yep, they've just changed the name. Okay. And if you don't have an Adobe Presenter or Adobe Connect Professional account, Mitchell West is your key point. You email mwest@mailbox.sc.edu and tell them you want an Adobe account. Adobe Connect Professional is the one where you do live and you have talking heads. Adobe Presenter is the old Breeze where you do voiceover PowerPoints with. We could have, 2-day sessions on just those two topics. So I know it's a lot of information in a short amount of time. We've still got about 3 minutes, so I didn't know if there was anything else in particular you wanted me to touch on. These are very difficult sessions to do because you just never know what everybody needs. So I tried to just give you kind of a big old general overview and some ideas of how people are using the technology and hope it was helpful. My email is T as in Tina, Crews is CREWS @mailbox.sc.edu. I'm happy to help any way I can in between my 6 jobs. No, I'm kidding. Does anybody else have questions or ideas or things you thought about? Ooh, I did that and I forgot I did that and that worked.